another day of my last 7 days of vlogging. Another day, another movie, and this time I'm going with Fleur from work. Fun fact, Fleur, who is actually English, has never been on a bicycle in London before. So it's the first time it's happening. We're gonna get us tickets and ride to Leicester Square and watch Crazy Rich Asians. I'm so excited.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have.
So Crazy Rich Asians was probably one of the most predictable movies I've seen in a while. It was cute, but nothing I'd probably want to watch again. So yeah, I'd probably give it like 6 out of 10. Okay, fine, 7 out of 10.
I was a boy, very strange and chatty boy. I was a boy, very strange and chatty boy.
Well, after such a beautiful walk around London, I thought I would record a video that I actually wanted to do in a long time. Sorry, just dropped my keys there for a second. About the fact that moving to London has probably been the best decision I've ever made in my life. But before I get into why London is such a great home for me, I need to wash this beautiful hair of mine, so I'll be right back. All right, now I'm ready. Hair is fresh. Let's go. So the number one reason of why I think moving to London has been the best decision of my life, I really feel, is because it really got me outside of my comfort zone. And what I mean by that is that I had a pretty comfortable life in Toronto. I lived with my parents. I lived an hour and a half away from downtown Toronto. So I used to commute by car and train to the downtown store at Queen Street. And it felt very comfortable. I was well connected within my company. I had a good stable job. I had career progression in my role. Everything was sort of like getting quite comfortable, where I wasn't even considering, to be honest, moving out of my parents' home for some odd reason, because the money that I was making then and the money that I started making in London in my first role was pretty much the same if you convert pound into Canadian dollar. It wasn't even part of the thought process to move out. It just felt like comfortable. I really hated the commute, but something within me was like, oh, you know, it just works. And then I went to Europe and I realized that, you know, I absolutely love the ability to travel and see so many places in such a short period of time, and to be exposed with so many cultures all at once within this little continent. That I went back and I decided, okay, where can I go where I can speak English and still get my level of comfort, that if I have a problem, if I need to go see a doctor, if, I don't know, I need to go see police, that I'm able to explain myself in the language that I'm fluent in. So I was still craving that comfort, which is why I chose UK. And it's also very useful to have the same queen in Canada and the UK. So that helped, and I was in that range between 18 and 30 where you could get the 2-year I think it's called Youth Mobility Visa. So that's what I had, and I moved here, and it really got me outside of my comfort zone. Despite speaking English, working in UK retail system was completely different to what I was used to in Canada. If you've been here and if you compare customer service in the UK compared to North America, it has, like, you can't even compare it because it's just a whole different world where here the companies are playing against the customer when it comes to customer service, whereas in the US and Canada it's the complete opposite of customers the god. So to me that was a huge shift. It's a big cultural shift as well. Once again, just because someone speaks the same language as you doesn't mean that they have necessarily the same values as you or the same set of mind as you. So adjusting to that was a huge thing. Having to be responsible for my entire budget. It was the first time outside of my exchange in Germany as a student that I lived alone, and it was one of the best experiences and one of the best things that I've done for myself, to get away from the comfort of living with parents. I've always been quite independent, but that moment when you start living alone and you need to pay for bills other than just your cell phone bill, and you need to think of what you're gonna do next month. Can you afford food, and can you afford your interests like travel and technology and drones? And yeah, so it puts a lot of things into perspective of what you can or cannot do, what you can or cannot afford. And it is a bit of a wake-up call. Also, the moment I started realizing that the retail system no longer works for me and that I wanted to move forward, I didn't have that comfort of living with my parents, not worrying about my rent. So I had to think very quick on my feet because I did have a lot to lose. I could have lost a place where I lived. So immediately you think on your feet of how can I switch my career? What do I like? What are my interests? And how can I explore that a bit more? At which point I did the certificate in digital marketing, which helped me tremendously, I think, shifting my mindset to that field entirely. And in that same time frame, I won that Wow Air contest and traveled with them and Snapchatted for them, which has also in a way changed my life. And I now, as a result of all of those choices that I had to make to still be able to afford rent and food and all that stuff, I ended up working at a company where I still work, which I can relate to so much more than I can relate to my previous employer. So all of these things and all of those little decisions and actions that I've made, I think have significantly impacted my life. And I managed to not only change the country where I lived by challenging myself, I also managed to switch my career over the course of 2 years of living in London. And I think it's a pretty great thing for my personal growth that I managed to do that. So to go into a little bit more detail of why London has been so good to me, I love living in multicultural cities, and Toronto was definitely one of them, but London is completely next level. Most of the people that live in core of London are actually not from London, which makes it such a cool environment to be in, where people constantly strive to progress themselves. They're striving to build something new, they're striving to learn something new, and it's a beautiful environment to be part of when the progress is such a big thing of the environment around you. London is the type of a metropolis that is a fusion between art, design, travel, romance, together with a bit of a laid-back feel to it, something that isn't always common for big cities. Another major reason why it's been such a great decision for me is that I love traveling, and living in London, it's super convenient to hop over to the European continent. You can take a 2-hour train to Paris. Now Eurostar even goes to Amsterdam, which is crazy. You can just sit on the train in London, 5 minutes away from us at St. Pancras Station, and in several hours you are in a completely different culture and environment. Eurostar, I think, blows my mind much more than airplanes do. Maybe because I've taken more airplanes in my life than trains, but it's something about getting into a train, going under the ground and appearing in a new country just blows my mind. So that is a huge reason. And another part of living in London that makes it so convenient for you working with other international markets is that its time zone is super convenient to working with both North America, Latin America, but also Asia Pacific. So I think it's a great place to be when you are running your own business or you're working for a multinational company where you need to have these conversations with different markets. It's a super convenient place to be. Another big reason is entertainment. I'm not a huge party girl whatsoever. I love to get my dance on, but I would rather go to a salsa bar than any raving club. So let's establish that, although there's plenty of places to rave in London. So as you know, half of my life was spent in Canada, a beautiful multicultural place where the food scene is absolutely booming. But 99.9% of the time, whenever I would meet with my friends in Toronto, and I still do, it is all about food. You go and have food. So in London, you get all of that with a very diverse food scene, but in addition, you get countless of neighborhoods to explore, gigs to see, shows to watch, green spaces and parks to sit and have picnics in. It's just an incredible vast of experiences that you can never get tired of. So you can choose to do several things over and over and over again, but you also have this incredible opportunity to try something new every single weekend. And if you want to try something every day, go crazy, but it is a bit exhausting. But what I'm saying is that you never really run out of things to do. And that's one of my favorite things about the city, is that it's so ever changing, and the gigs and shows and comedy shows and you name it, they have it here. It's something that makes living here so incredibly special. So to summarize it all, I think moving to London has been one of the best decisions of my life, because separating from the comfort that I've known at home in Toronto, moving to a completely different culture and going through a very steep learning curve allowed me to grow so much over the last, I think it's been 3.5 years. So much more than I think I would have had I stayed in Toronto living a comfortable life with my parents. And maybe if I moved somewhere else other than London several years ago, I would have felt the same way, but London feels like the second home to me. But as I grow as an individual, so does my family. So as much as I absolutely miss my parents and my grandparents and my sister who has 2 girls, and I can't believe I'm not there every single day of their life watching them grow, I'm super grateful that I met an incredible human being that I get to share my life with in Europe. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. But I have to say this, moving to London on your own can be quite daunting, and it is quite scary. And I look back at my first 6 months here and I realize, oh my God, I was actually quite depressed, and depressed for several reasons. The environment of a job that I've selected for myself wasn't providing me valuable friendships that would allow me to work through this very uncomfortable period of the first year of living in London. I had barely any friends starting out my life here, and it's tough. If you haven't seen my video Make This Happen, please do watch it, because I go into so much more detail there of my move to London and everything that led me up to the moment where I am now. I really think that as spontaneous as the decision is to move to London, and especially for Canadians or Australians, the move is quite seamless in terms of the visa process. I would pick very carefully where you start working and what circle of people you're going to surround yourself with, because that is essentially what is going to make your experience in London an incredible one. So it's amazing to have all of these things to experience, all of these gigs to see and the shows to watch, but at the end of the day, if you're on your own in this huge metropolis, it does get quite lonely. So think about who you would want in your circle of friends. There's numerous amounts of amazing meetups, not only Instagram meetups, but in general, like for any topic or interest that you can think of, there's a meetup in London where people hang out, brainstorm ideas, share their passions, and that's where a lot of the people who are singles in the city, that's where they meet and hang out, and it is such a cool environment, again, to be part of. So think really hard about that. And if you have any questions, if you're in the process of a move, or if you're here and there's any questions that you have for me, I would love to respond to you and let you know my thoughts and ideas. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would really appreciate it. There's only a few days left of vlogging, so your comments and questions for what I should do the next several vlogs about would be really appreciated. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah.